Japan just panicked. The next round of escalation in the Middle East is happening as the ceasefire breaks in the past 24 hours. And Clarity Act markup is being scheduled, hopefully to be done in May. And the passage of the bill and full regulations of the digital asset sector should be live by the end of this year. And this is why we're going to title this update XRP The Final Dominoes, because the final dominoes are dropping that sets up the stage for XRP's utility to be realized at scale. And you better believe that it's going to lead to a higher price of XRP as well. And we're going to talk about the unique role that RLUSD plays securing up a matter of national security, this work being done by Ripple to secure digital assets and the institutions that are going to use them, to increase demand for treasuries, and ultimately drive more demand and access to the US dollar, which also happens to help the United States of America and President Trump and his mission as well. So in today's breakdown, you're going to get it all. Let's run through it. If you appreciate what we're doing, please make sure that you have subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our updates. Breaking news within the past hour. 20 tankers up now, most I have ever seen in one place on radar. U.S. Air Force showing a clear show of force. Just a massive amount of U.S. tankers up above the Strait of Hormuz. This is being reported by War Monitor on X. Sources tell CNN that U.S.-Israeli strikes to resume on Iran within 24 hours. Now, all of this is happening as the 30-year bond and the 20-year and the 10-year and the 2-year, all of the U.S. bonds shot up, meaning that a huge sell-off was taking place in the bond market today. Now, last year in 2025, when that bond market started to rise right before President Trump took office in January of 2025, let's go to the chart so you can see what the heck I'm talking about. We're talking about January 2025 back in here. President Trump comes in to take office, and right before he does, the bond market just sells off all the way until he finally takes office, and then it starts to work itself back down, right, on the expectation that President Trump's going to bring down rates with the Fed. And the bond market gets bought up, it comes back down, but ultimately what drove it back down to this low of 4.3% was the tariffs and the Liberation Day, at least that's what it was called, Liberation Day, on April 2nd, which happened right here. And then that completed this, basically this demand that came in for U.S. Treasuries, driving the 30-year down to 4.3%. Now on the 20-year, it went all the way down to 4.3% as well. The 10-year drops all the way down here to 3.8%. And the 2-year, it got bought up and it drove the yield on that down to 3.4%. So when people want to buy the bonds, right, that yield's coming down. People are willing to take less and less in return or interest because they want to get into treasuries. It's safety, right? And so people were expecting President Trump to bring down rates. And then President Trump scares the crap out of everybody when he announces the Liberation Day tariffs. That's how he and Scott Bessent and his administration brought down the bond yields last year with the Liberation Day tariffs. But it did not last. It did not last long at all. And the same thing's taking place right now with the war. It, for a brief moment in time, did drive some demand back into the bond market here in the United States as the war starts at the end of February going into March, and it drives the yield here down to 3.3% Monday, March 2nd, right after the war in Iran had gotten started. Same thing on the 10-year, going back down to about 3.9%. Let's skip to the 30-year. It got brought all the way back down to 4.6%. But the short-term demand did not last. And once again, we shoot back up. And today we get fireworks in the bond market as it pops above 5% for the 30-year. For the 10-year, it pops above 4.46%. Are you ready for 7% mortgage rates again in this country? Because that's what we're going to have, right as we're supposed to go into a spring selling season. Good luck and God bless. It's about to get nasty out here. But here's where it gets interesting. And we're going to talk about the solution. Because President Trump can do this next round of escalation and the climax of this conflict can come in and it can scare the ever-living crap out of the market and drive rates back down temporarily, just like it did in the tariffs Liberation Day last year, but it won't last. See, this is where you need stablecoins. This is where you need Clarity Act passed into law. See, Genius provided the rules for stablecoins, but you need the complete set of rules of the road, and that's what the Clarity Act will provide. Now, guess what? At the same time, the Bank of Japan intervenes in the FX market. We talked about it last week, and now Japan says it counts 3 consecutive days of FX intervention as one. So there you have it, right? 3 days in a row, but it's only one intervention. It's the same type of pandering and speech that our Federal Reserve uses. It's the same. All of these central banks and all of these finance ministers, they use the same lingo, which we have to decode and break down into simple terms so we can understand what the heck these guys are talking about. And it's all the same position. They're all backed into a corner. They have a few levers that they can move, but ultimately, the central banks alone can't drive the demand of these currencies into the bonds. It's going to take more. What's going to be that solution? You're going to find out after this next slide. Today, we see violent bond market moves spark liquidation speculation. U.S. 30-year Treasury yield reportedly spiked from 4.97 to 5.03 multiple times within minutes. And that isn't even a reportedly. We see it on the chart. It's there right now, as I just showed you guys, fueling speculation that a major player may have aggressively dumped treasuries into the market. While it could be a thin liquidity data glitch with no equivalent move in underlying bonds, the sudden volatility has reignited concerns around deficits, rising term premiums, oil shocks, and broader stress in the U.S. debt market. Like when Japan's going to panic, and they're going to be forced to sell off U.S. treasuries. Now, we don't have the proof in front of us right now to say that this was Japan specifically selling off bonds, but we already know that they have been. We know that China has. We know that our allies, our enemies, the American people, Wall Street, hedge funds, there's a lot of people that are just getting out of treasuries and don't want to do a deal with the devil. That's how I describe bonds, by the way, especially with the U.S. government bonds. I describe it as doing a deal with the devil. Maybe that's a little bit dramatic. You guys can let me know in the comments down below. How do you get people back into this? Not just people in America, not just Wall Street and hedge funds, our allies, our enemies. How do you get them back in? Well, one part of this is going to be the next round of escalation and the climax of the conflict in the Middle East. I've been pounding the table about that for the past 2-3 weeks. Here we are in the past 24 hours, the ceasefire breaks. Oil spikes. Treasuries have this, some suggesting it might just be a glitch. It's probably a coincidence, not a big deal. At the same time that Japan's intervening in the FX market. Now, like I said, you scare the ever-living crap out of everybody with the war. And maybe we could pull the alien card too. That might work. The aliens, that would probably bring down the bond market a little bit. Get the mortgage rates back down to 6%. If we can get the 10-year back below 4%. Right? And the aliens might be good for our, a little bit of relief for the real estate market if we get scare the crap out of everybody with aliens. Or war. Or the idea that I like is that we maintain our reserve currency status with real merit, with real backing, not just forcing our will through the end of a barrel of a gun. And here's where the Clarity Act comes in tandem with the Genius Act, which was the rules of the road for stablecoins. You expand upon that with the full, complete set of rules with the Clarity Act. And Senator Loomis calling for it again. The digital asset industry has waited long enough. Businesses are making decisions where to build right now. And without clear rules, too many will go overseas. We must get clarity done now. America's financial future depends on it. This is where the solution comes in. And we're not talking about hypotheticals. We're not speculating. The DTCC, which settles quadrillions of dollars per year, not billions with a B, not trillions with a T, that would be quadrillions with a Q, to begin limited tokenized securities trading in July. We're moving past proof of concept. We're moving past speculation, hypotheticals, and playing around, and we're going live. Now, the DTCC added over 50 plus firms to advance tokenized securities into live workflows. This is how traditional finance moves from pilots to scale. And you better believe that Ripple is right at the center of it. Now, Ripple is only one of 50 firms selected here by the DTCC. So anybody clickbaiting, saying that the DTCC selected XRP, hold your horses, not so fast. This is one of my problems in the crypto space, is that we have a crypto company that's part of a working group, a proof of concept, playing in the sandbox, and the crypto clickbaiters and hypesters hop on it and say, oh, the DTC selected XRP, quadrillions will flow on XRP by the end of this year. In July, the DTCC is going to flip the switch. Everything moves to XRP. I'm sure that there's already been some clickbaiters that did that. And if they haven't, they'll watch this and they'll say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks, Zach. Let me go clickbait that up. And this is where we break down where the rubber meets the road. Not just hypotheticals, not just speculation, but where does the rubber meet the road? Ripple's going to be a part of this with the DTCC. Ultimately, at the end of the day, and I'm going to show you where Ripple, RLUSD, and XRP plays a role. This is part of it. Ripple's always in the room. And the DTCC moving quadrillions of dollars of flows is just the start. And Ripple has set the standard, where Ripple is set to move trillions of dollars of flows using RLUSD as collateral and using RLUSD in the payment flows. And reminder, RLUSD lives on the XRP ledger. So to use RLUSD, you need XRP wallets, liquidity pools on the XRP ledger, flows that'll happen on the XRP ledger DEX, all involving XRP. So don't be mistaken in thinking that because we're talking about RLUSD collateral and flows being used here, that it doesn't involve any liquidity happening on the XRP ledger. That's exactly where it's going to be happening. Now, I just wanted to remind everybody. I asked Grok to just remind everybody so we can do this live together. How is RLUSD used as collateral and in payment flows for both offerings? We'll get to that after first we talk about the numbers. Ripple Treasury is going to be processing 12.5 to 13 trillion in annual payment volume, while Ripple Prime clears roughly 3 trillion annually with growth since the acquisition. So conservatively, we have $16 trillion of flows this year that will be ready to move to the XRP ledger, and collateral and payment flows happening in RLUSD. Not all of that's going to move to RLUSD right away, but a lot of it is. And we're going to go right here. We got the specific examples for where RLUSD is used as collateral and in the payment flows. Okay. So RLUSD is Ripple's USD-backed stablecoin, and it serves as a stable on-chain USD equivalent in both Ripple Prime and Ripple Treasury, enabling faster settlement, capital efficiency, and yield while staying fully backed one-to-one by reserves held in segregated accounts. Now, how does Ripple Prime use it? RLUSD is core collateral asset and settlement medium for trading, financing, and clearing across traditional securities, crypto derivatives, and repo. Kind of sounds like what the DTCC is trying to do, doesn't it? Maybe we already did the proof of concept for the DTCC. Maybe we could share notes. We could share notes on that one. Now, it's used as collateral, where institutions deposit US dollars, and they can convert partially or fully all of that to RLUSD, which becomes their primary collateral balance inside the platform. They use that for margin on derivatives, repo financing, cross-margining. And this also, right, Ripple Prime, remember, Ripple Prime is an institutional multi-asset prime brokerage. Right? So all sorts of trading. In the payment and settlement flows on Ripple Prime, direct on-chain or platform settlement of trades, margin calls, and OTC transactions using RLUSD. And it also acts as a bridge settlement currency and multi-asset workflows with instant finality on the XRP ledger. Reminder, this is happening on the XRP ledger, and that's going to be live with 300 plus institutional clients and supports the platform's 3 trillion annual cleared volume. Where is it used on Ripple Treasury? This is an enterprise treasury management system powered by G Treasury, which was the company that Ripple acquired. Now, it's also used as collateral here, and it's also used in the payment and the settlement flows here. And reminder, at the Treasury solution here, we're talking 12 to 13 trillion in annual volume. So Ripple Treasury routes liquidity and idle balances to Ripple Prime and Ripple Payments for advanced collateral yield and settlement services. One of the best solutions right here is this turns static Treasury cash into revenue generating collateral without leaving the platform. Because what they do is they can take that RLUSD that you post as collateral in overnight secure repo markets backed by US Treasuries to earn 24/7 yield on idle cash balances. Does that sound like that might help us soak up some demand for US Treasuries when we're talking about Ripple's solutions that they have for themselves is 16 trillion of potential flows that could be used, RLUSD could be used as collateral for, and the payment flows could happen using RLUSD on the XRP ledger for. Notice how the objectives and the goals and the agenda priorities of Ripple are so closely aligned with what our US Treasury is trying to achieve. You notice that? Same thing taking place right here. The strongest security posture in crypto is a shared one. A threat actor who fails a background check at one company will apply to 3 more that same week. Without shared intelligence, every company starts from zero. Ripple is now contributing exclusive DPRK, which is North Korea threat intelligence, to crypto ISAC. So the industry can act on threats in real time. So in the same way that Tether has been used for a lot of bad things, and a lot of criminal networks chose Tether wrongfully, where Tether now cooperates with our government, freezes those assets, and is helping law enforcement, Ripple's going to be stepping in here too, doing the same thing, same level of compliance, probably a higher level of compliance at Ripple with RLUSD. And now they're going to be helping to monitor matters of national security. And keeping the US dollar a reserve currency is a matter of national security. It all comes back to the same agenda, the same objective of expanding US dollar dominance through stablecoins, which is exactly what President Trump said he was going to do at the 2024 Bitcoin conference, for those that remember. He went to the Bitcoin bros and told them that it was going to be stablecoins that were going to be key to expanding US dollar dominance. So to put this all together, in conclusion, the final dominoes are dropping. Where Japan is panicking, what do they have to sell off? US Treasuries. So see, that along with all these other countries, our allies, our enemies, US investors dumping US Treasuries, backs President Trump and our central bank back into the corner. What can he do? Well, he has an agenda here in the Middle East that they're looking to achieve. Some objectives, right? And so the next round of escalation is here. That scares the ever-living crap out of everybody, forcing people back into treasuries. But that doesn't last. We need more. Insert the Clarity Act, which builds on top of the Genius Act, which provides full rules of the road and adoption at scale for institutions to use stablecoins and digital asset technology. We're talking about Ripple's XRP and RLUSD tandem being probably one of the best solutions to this debt, currency, and liquidity crisis that we face. And so I believe that it gives us in the United States a competitive advantage, how closely Ripple seems to be working with our treasury. But XRP itself and the XRP ledger provides a neutral level playing field for everybody. So the United States, I think, working with Ripple has a unique opportunity. But then anybody else that wants to decide to bring their stablecoin, bring their treasuries, bring their real-world assets to the XRP ledger is going to see the same benefits as well. The same benefits that Ripple has, the same benefits that the United States government and our treasury is getting to have in Tether, USDC, RLUSD, and all of the other stablecoins. All of them combined, right, help to soak up that demand for US treasuries that we so desperately need with the bond market blowing up today. So the final dominoes are falling for XRP, price action to follow. Take advantage of the asset while it's on sale right now. Now we have all of our community resources linked up down below and at my website, zachrector.com. If you appreciate it, you know what to do on the way out. We'll see you in the next one. God bless. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.